Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the SAP IP Business Talks, and today we touch a topic which is maybe not to everybody that clear, especially the importance of that topic. We talk not just about intangibles, we talk always about intangibles, but today I would like to talk about trade secrets and trade secrets management. And this is a topic where I cannot imagine something more perfect, a better expert on that than Chris Buntel. I'm very happy, Chris, that you are here with me, that we have you. And my first question to you is, it's always my first question to my interview partners because nobody wakes up in the morning, a boy wakes up and says, okay, I want to go to IP field. So that's very unusual. So typical is a winding way. And what is your background and how did you came into that field and then in the IP field and then especially to these trade secrets? So what is your mission on that and your experience and track record?
Sure, it's great to be here, and it's a great opening question. Yeah, I started off being a PhD organic chemist, and I was thinking I would become a university faculty member and just have a very normal, conventional career. And obviously, that didn't happen quite that normally or that boringly, because towards the end of the PhD, I started looking at interesting careers that used a technical background but we're not trapped in the laboratory all day. And intellectual property was one of the more interesting ones that came up as career options. And I interviewed a bunch of IP lawyers and thought, wow, this is a really interesting field. You get to learn about a lot of different things, and you don't spill chemicals on yourself and worry about getting cancer from your research. So for me, it worked out great. And then I went to night law school, worked at law firms, worked at corporations. And trade secrets have been probably the bulk of my work for the last 5 years or so, but not by design. It was really kind of seeing a beginning of a trend in the marketplace and in industry, in something that was grossly undersupported. So I really found this to be a growing opportunity and a huge need in the marketplace that I could help address in my own way.
I got you. So when we talk about trade secrets, so I have the feeling that there are many misconceptions out there, especially how companies deal that the executives, the company representatives, how sometimes I have the impression that they feel that this is just for free, so they don't have to do anything. It's just so there's no registration, which means so literally you don't have to do anything for it. So obviously this is not true for people who understand how the thing works. What would you say in terms of, let's say, active managing and even proactive managing? What is your advice on that? How should companies behave?
Wow, that's a broad question. And there are tens or hundreds of misconceptions out there. And compared to the regular government registered forms of IP, like patents, trademarks, and copyrights, they're kind of easy in a way because there's great transparency and great understanding of what the process is. And those of us in the field can easily articulate to our friends and colleagues, here are the 12 steps, or here's the 25 steps that you need to go through to register those kind of normal types of IP. But you go into trade secrets and it's a whole different world. And during my career, I loved patents and trademarks. I think today I still like them, but I love trade secrets. So my like and love balance has changed because trade secrets, they don't have a clear playbook. They don't have a government official book that you can open and follow steps 1 and then 2 and then 3 and end up with a protected trade secret. It's very much almost DIY, like do it yourself. And that leads to a lot of confusion and misconceptions, like you said. We've even had some people that I talk to say, oh, trade secrets are free. And I was shocked when they said that. And they were thinking, well, there's no government fee. It's not like when you file a patent application and you throw some money at the patent office. Because there's no registration, there's no fee. But that person felt like the entirety of trade secrets are therefore free. And it's
Okay,
like,
so
no.
we have a very interesting question in the master program at SAP. So to the students at the final examination, okay, and it's always the same question. It's the question, okay, what would you say compared to classical IP like patents, trademarks? Are trade secrets cheap? And then they start to discuss, okay, and we always try to explain that they don't come for free, and that is really something which has to be managed, and that this is an effort. Obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, management means effort. But so even and I'm talking about masters in IP management, okay, and so that are guys who have 3-4 years experience in IP, and they are industry representatives, and it is not clear to everybody, even after a year of master training on that issues. It's unbelievable how deep this thought roots.
Yeah, it really is, and it would be laughable if I asked someone, are patents free? Like that's the most ridiculous question, and they would say, there's all sorts of fees. You have to pay a law firm, you have software, you have staff, maybe you have some industry providing docketing. Like there's all these services and costs that are perfectly normal and expected around managing things like a patent portfolio or a trademark portfolio. And that's normal. Like no one would even question, why are you spending money on a patent portfolio or a trademark? But we do run into this issue of, oh, well, I have no budget to manage trade secrets, or trade secrets should be free, or why do I even want to spend a small amount of money when during my whole career, people say this, I've never had to worry about trade secrets so far, so why now? Why today should I suddenly put staff on it, get software, get support for kind of a new asset class, or at least an asset class that now is being paid attention to, and maybe historically was kind of an afterthought or a plan B. But nowadays, trade secrets are becoming, at least maybe not plan A, but something that is equally important to patents, especially in certain industries.
I mean, we see that we have a new name for it. It's acqui-hire. So when we talk about AI and these deep tech companies, high tech companies, so they hire people because they want to get the knowledge, but also they want to get the trade secrets. Obviously, I mean. What we really see is that you hire people to get that. We live in a knowledge economy, and so these trade secrets are from my perspective, number one IP issue, especially because they are not registered and or there is so less formality in it.
Yeah, and law firms are great at litigating. So once you have a problem where an employee leaves and goes to a competitor or starts their own shop, law firms can litigate that and litigate it very well, or go to arbitration or what have you. But very few people do things proactively. And the courts are increasingly requiring you to do things right years before you even have a problem. And it's very much like if your house is on fire, you come home from work and your house is burning down. That is not the time to ask, do I have fire insurance, right? You get the fire insurance when your house is not on fire. And trade secrets are really the same way, where the courts and the statutes are saying you have to do everything right before there's an issue. to have a chance at a good result should you end up having to enforce it. So it's really a whole different mentality for a lot of people. And again, for most of their careers, they never really worried about trade secrets. But because the world is changing, technology moves very quickly. Patents aren't as shiny and effective as they used to be. People change jobs, people work from home. There's all of these factors that are making trade secrets much more compelling now than even 5 or 10 years ago.
You have the feeling that this new work situation is also affecting the management of trade secrets, and do companies react on that?
So it's definitely affecting it. Whether companies are reacting on it, I think is still to be seen. But there's a lot more risk nowadays of losing your trade secrets because people change jobs very quickly. Like no one stays in their job 30 years like they used to. So they change jobs, they work from home, they work from a coffee shop. There's all of these risks that didn't exist before, where everyone used a mainframe computer at the office, didn't bring anything home with them,
Chris,
didn't have laptop computers.
I had a
really changed.
I had a LinkedIn, a wonderful meme, a post where a guy made a photo from the train, and he was sitting in a more or less empty wagon, and 3 or 4 rows in front of him, a guy talked on very loud in his phone, and then he said, "Okay, I know now who Michael Meyer is. I know what is his role in the company. I know that this guy don't like him. I know the trade secret A, B, C." Simply people. So so people are the biggest issue here. That they are not trained. They have no formal education, nor practical skill training, nothing to handle these things. They are too. This is this misconception. Nobody's interested in what I'm speaking, what I'm talking to my phone.
That's right. Well, and a lot of trade secret problems come from your own employees or your own coworkers. And again, that's a misconception. About 70% of the time, it's employees or departing employees that are the issue. It's not the hackers and thieves that break in the middle of the night. Statistically, it's the person working at the next desk over. But companies don't provide the kind of good training and guidance like you described that actually will reduce your risk of problems dramatically. Because a lot of the problems, they're not bad people. They're just untrained. Like they just don't realize that they're putting valuable assets at risk. And even by providing minimal basic training, your risk profile will go way down. And again, that's a misconception.
And I think this is it's just a logical consequence from the misconception that you don't have to do anything and you have your trade secrets.
That's right.
That's obviously the problem. So for convincing people, it might be an approach to show the, let's say, the value of trade secrets, and that has a lot to do with the alignment between the business objectives and how trade secrets are treated. So have you examples how that can be done, so to align a business strategy with the trade secret management?
Yeah, definitely. And again, a lot of people think about IP in general as kind of the end point. So I got 5 patents or I have 10 trademarks. The reality is all IP are tools for the business. And like any tool, you can use it effectively or ineffectively or incorrectly. It's like if I handed you a hammer or a screwdriver, you can build a nice new house, which is fantastic, or you can put it on a shelf where it collects dust, or I could hit you on the head with the hammer, which is a really bad thing to do. But IP is a business tool, and you can associate that with value. So, especially for small to medium-sized companies, their IP portfolio is normally pretty small. A startup might have a couple of pending patent applications, one or two trademarks, and that's about it. And that looks like a very small portfolio. But if you add in trade secrets, they probably have 50, 70, 100 trade secrets that they're just not paying attention to, or they're not cataloging and managing. But suddenly, instead of having a portfolio of 5 assets, you have a portfolio of 105 assets. And if you're going to a VC or an angel or a granting agency, suddenly you look very credible and you look very valuable because you've included this additional asset class in your IP portfolio. So that really can drive a lot of value. And you can even license or sell trade secrets either by themselves or with patents and other IP assets to derive more value. So, but you have to know what you have. And so many people have no idea. Or it might be very vague. Like if you ask them, how many trade secrets do you have? You'll often hear, well, a lot of them will say none, which is completely wrong because every company in the world has them. Or you'll get a very fuzzy answer of, oh, we must have hundreds. But then they can't articulate what even their top 5 most valuable ones are. So again, there's another popular misconception.
Oh, I'm working right now for a company making evaluation. It's a quantum technology company, and it's normal that you in such a field, okay, when you have a talented, let's call it startup. I think they are in the 3rd round now, so it's not really a complete new company, but we talk about hundreds of millions of value for their IP, and then the question was how do we deal with the not already filed patents, and and we discussed that it makes a lot. So then when you deal it in that way, then it looks like you have not done your homework already. But when you simply say to the investors, look, we make decisions, what should stay secret, what are the topics we don't want to talk about, and what we publish in terms of patents, because this is at the end always a publication. And that was very impressive for the investor, because in that situation, the investor had the impression, and they said that afterwards, that this company understands these different tools and the mechanisms, and what kind of management creates which value. But it's an exemption, of course. This is not the typical way how it's done.
Yeah, and it's a great example of being thoughtful and mindful and having good procedures to follow. And what's the best way to protect something, or what's the best way to preserve value for an asset? And it might be a different answer every time, but it's fantastic that this company you're referring to had a good thought process that they could articulate and follow. That's wonderful. A lot of people aren't that sophisticated, or at least are on their journey to becoming more sophisticated and more thoughtful. Because the reality is you have a lot of different tools available to you in managing IP, and it's really up to us to mix and match or get the best combination for every given situation. And again, the mix might be different, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, it starts with this awareness, right? So the key aspect is that the company understands, and a company doesn't exist. So we have the management, we have R&D, we have marketing, and that it becomes clear that these assets are there, and that are assets, and that the company is the foundation of the company is based on these kind of assets. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. And as we said, people work everywhere, or they change jobs. And I had the experience that sometimes it is even not clear what this person exactly knows. So nobody ever documented that. It's just the expert. Okay. So and now no procedures, no tools, no documentation, nothing. But the person is gone, and maybe the expert, is hired by your next most important competitor. So that's not a situation you would like to have. And in that situation, you need, I would say, this proactively activity. So can you explain a little bit what should a company do from a step by step approach?
There's a lot of steps, and the important step is just to take a step. And a lot of companies that we talk to are kind of paralyzed by fear or uncertainty. And again, it goes back to, with patenting, there's very clear articulated steps. And a lot of the people that I meet, they want to do something, but they don't even know what that first step should be. Or they're so concerned about making everything perfect that they end up doing nothing at all, because it's like, perfect is the opposite of good or good enough.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great steps that can be done to really help. So one is education and training. It's not technically a legal thing. It's more, improving the knowledge base of your employees, but that probably has the best return on investment of anything you can do on trade secrets. So just education is a great way to start. Knowing what you have is super important. And again, most companies have no idea what their trade secret assets are. So at the very beginning, it's almost like a review or an audit that needs to happen to understand what your assets are. And you can use that for a lot of benefit. Again, you can justify a higher valuation, you can lower your risk of problems happening, and you can position yourself for success should you have to enforce later. It's like any other asset that the business has, are all well listed and well articulated. So every piece of real estate, every vehicle that the company owns, all of the machinery that they own, even like laptop computers, there's a listing somewhere. And there's no question of what those physical assets are, but somehow there's no listing at all for trade secrets. And it makes it hard when something is lost. Like, if you have no idea what your company laptops are and one disappears, one gets stolen or misplaced, you have no way of knowing. Like, you probably don't even know it's missing out of 1,000 laptops. And trade secrets are the same thing. Like, if someone does leave to join a competitor or start their own competing business, you want to know what they had access to. But that way you can tell them.
Let me jump into it, because I of course I like the comparison with physical assets, but I would say typically, I mean, a laptop is a commodity. You can get it everywhere, and when your IT is well managed and you lose a laptop, a day later you have an identical machine on your desk, and you can still work. The trade secret issue is that first you don't know that it is gone, but especially it is not just exchangeable. So when it is gone, you cannot replace it in a day and you have it again. So especially when you don't know exactly what is gone, it's not documented, you don't know what it is exactly, you cannot replace it. So maybe even when you have documented, you cannot replace it easily. That's the next thing. That trade secrets are not a commodity which you can buy everywhere.
True. Well, and part of the reason why you can replace that laptop so easily is you have a list, you have policies and procedures, and your IT staff know exactly what to do. They're trained, they've experienced it before, and magically within a day, your old laptop gets remotely erased and your new laptop is configured and you're back in business. So I think having, and trade secrets are different. I mean, don't get me wrong, but having good policies, good procedures, good training will make it easier to deal with. Now, trade secrets, once they're lost, they are very difficult to claw back. And that's why a lot of times you end up in litigation or arbitration or another dispute mechanism because they're not easily replaced. And there can be tremendous damage when those valuable trade secrets leave the building and end up at your competitor. And we're seeing incredibly large damages starting to happen as trade secret risks are being noticed and understood and pursued.
Yeah, and another issue is it's not necessary to talk about litigation here, but I had a case at the International Chamber of Commerce, an arbitration case, and between a Brazilian company and a German company, and it is I assume that for many people it is not clear how easy it is to claim a know-how or a trade secret theft. This is very easy to claim. You just make a list and say, okay, I think this is the know-how which is gone and this is theft from this guy. So, and now how to defend? Yeah. When you have no understanding about trade secrets, you have your own trade secrets which you need to make your product never documented. So trade secrets, so to speak, don't exist. But now comes somebody, sneaks around the corner, a former cooperation partner, and simply say, "You stole my know-how," and that is really and it is under German law, that can be extremely expensive. Okay, so because in Germany we don't have this causality thing. Yeah, so you just pay your profit for over many years. Yeah, so that can kill the company like that. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
and that makes a big. With our laptop example, yeah. So yes, well managed, well documented, trained, replaceable. And this is the opposite of the typical situation with trade secrets.
Yep. Well, and you'll never get your risk to zero, unfortunately, but by doing everything right, you will reduce your risk dramatically.
Absolutely.
And then, should you still end up in a bad situation, you have a great story to tell that you took all these steps, you had systems, you had procedures, policies, everything, great software support, great advice from law firms, and yet this ex-employee still took your valuable information and did something bad.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You have a great story versus we didn't do anything until it was too late.
Exactly. That makes a big difference. That makes a huge difference when you stand in front of an arbitration court and you have to tell them, oh, I have nothing. We did nothing about our trade secrets. And the others say, hey, we manage it and we have the documentation, we have this training program in place. That makes a huge difference in the head of these judges.
Yeah. Well, and again, it all comes back to, how compelling a story do you have about, you understand trade secrets, they're valuable, and you treat them like a valuable asset, like other valuable assets you protect. So why not trade secrets? And there's kind of a joke about what's the best time to protect your trade secrets. And of course, the best answer is 10 years ago. And the second best answer is right now, today. Like, you really should do something if these assets are truly valuable. And again, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to take steps, improve your processes, just like any other form of IP.
Yeah. So that leads me to another issue. So these other forms of IP. So typically, a company has a kind of, let's say, IP portfolio. Okay. And they manage it anyhow. from an administrative standpoint, but also from a strategic standpoint. And when you want to handle that, when you want to have an integrated perspective on your whole IP portfolio, what would you say? Which kind of measures can I use to execute that kind of integration?
Well, I think that it's really picking the combination of IP to give the best result each time. And they're also not exclusive. Like a lot of people feel like there's a patent road and a trade secret road, and you can only choose one. Like your car can only drive down one and not the other. But very often there are ways of combining different types of IP, like trademarks with patents and trade secrets all together. And even in cases where you do file a patent application, trade secrets are still important. So for the first 18 months before publication, as long as you don't, on your own disclose it, it's a trade secret. Also, any improvements or refinements that you make after filing are not in the patent because you didn't know about them then, but they might be fantastic trade secrets. So it's really very much a holistic view of, for this piece of information or this technology, what combination and what distribution of those IP tools gives you the most value or the best protection, and just be flexible. And trade secrets are kind of interesting as well because they're not only technology. Like a lot of us are trained to think in terms of, IP comes from R&D and manufacturing. But when you look at trade secrets, they're everywhere in the organization. So finance has them, HR has them, marketing and sales have them. So it actually forces us to interact with people that a traditional patent lawyer or IP lawyer wouldn't normally think to talk to. And that's great. It actually gives you more visibility within the organization, and a lot more people realize the value that you're protecting. That's exciting.
And I think especially when we talk about these different functions in the company, so obviously a marketing campaign and a way to how to make offers to customers, your pricing scheme, that are all aspects in the customer relation. Also, simply the addresses, and to know who in your target group, who in your customers companies is the right person to talk about this or that product, this or that service. So typically marketing people, they have literally no awareness about or salespeople about trade secrets. They wouldn't even call it like that. So yes, I have a certain practice to handle this or that, but even the terminology is not clear. And they are very open to talk with everybody because they are so proud that they are so good, that they make so much money, and that they sell the product so easily. But that's exactly the point, that the different functions have to be treated in a different way, have to be, let's say, trained in a different way, with different language even.
Sure.
To make them aware and to give them the skills to handle trade secrets. So what is your experience with these different functions in the company? How can we treat them, and how can we handle the different level of awareness?
Well, and it's almost like you have to be an English to English translator within the company, or German to German, or Spanish to Spanish, whatever. But you have to adapt to your audience. And part of our challenge as IP professionals is being able to communicate why this thing is important. Because you're right, like a marketing person designing competitive intelligence documents or an M&A plan, they would never say, oh, this is a trade secret, because you're right, they're not trained and they don't understand it that way. But if you ask them, would you be upset if your competitor got a copy of this document or learned this information? Would that bother you? And of course, they'll say, oh, I would be furious because I spent years and thousands of dollars or euros developing this. So I'd be furious. It's like, well, that means it's most likely a trade secret. And it would be nonsense to patent your M&A strategy. That makes no sense. And it's not trademarked, but it's totally a trade secret. So a lot of it keeps going back to this notion of training and education being super important. And once people start to think differently about what they're doing, they realize they're creating super valuable assets and didn't even realize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I keep coming full circle back to training. It's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah. I mean, what I have experienced is especially the treatment of so-called negative know-how. Mm-hmm. So you are a chemist, okay? And when in chemistry, when you know what doesn't work, okay, so you try to synthesize something new, and you make a long history of tests, of experiments, and you know what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So and now you have the solution. Yeah. So this knowledge about the not working out procedures has such a high value, but this is a typical a trade secret which is simply not valued, not realized by experts, by R&D people. So they simply say this is negative in terms of I know what doesn't work, so I can tell you that. I don't tell you what works, but I tell you what doesn't work. But that means that you give the others a huge advantage because they don't have to make this experiment. And I think
and this is it's one of the huge misconceptions. Coming back to your earlier question of what are trade secrets, and everything that we're trained to think about is in terms of success. Like everyone wants to get the best score on the exam or release the best product or best service. Like everything we're taught since childhood is all about being successful. And I think that's why negative know-how is difficult for a lot of people to understand or to think about, because it's actually saying failure is valuable. And that sounds pretty crazy. Like that's kind of a wild idea. But you see some cases where an employee will move to a new company, and then the new company will release a product in 4 months instead of 4 years. And it's because they were able to skip the 75 failures and jump right to the 76th one that was successful. But again, it's a whole different mindset to say, all of these things that completely failed, they weren't effective, they caught fire, just whatever bad thing happened is successful. Like it's a great topic. It's again one of my favorites because it is such a different way of thinking about trade secrets.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we see in the tech world right now. Why Google and Apple, they hire these AI people from each other and try to get the latest news. So what doesn't work, and that is at the end, this is what we see out there. And again, being accused of stolen know-how or trade secrets is very, very easy, and we see also these cases out there now, and so it is extremely important to be well prepared and to document these things. So that leads me to another issue. So these when you start working with a company, so we said training is important, obviously. When you start with this documentation, so I hear often that company representatives tell me I don't have any trade secret. Yeah, so everything here is trivial. So how do you start to work with a company to find a way to find out what might be a trade secret here?
And it is hard, admittedly, and especially for companies that think they have no trade secrets, that makes it a little bit more challenging. But a lot of it is talking to people, and we have some guides of typical trade secrets in an organization, and every single person I share that with looks at it, and there's always something surprising in it. They say, "Oh, I had no idea that was a trade secret," or "I never thought about negative know-how before." So there's always an element of surprise there. But if you talk to people and ask that question of, would you be upset if your competitor learned that? Then they'll say yes. And it's like, well, guess what? That means this is most likely a trade secret. And you ask them that multiple times and they keep saying yes. And eventually they will come around. And at that point, it becomes, again, kind of an audit or a review or a digging process of systematically identifying where trade secrets are in the organization. And in a small company or a startup, it can be relatively easy because there are fewer people, probably fewer trade secrets. In a larger company, you have to find ways to make it more manageable, like going project by project or department by department or geographical site, one to another. If you just walked into a huge multinational and said, okay, today we're going to start cataloging your trade secrets, it can be a bit overwhelming. But if you can find ways of making it into more discrete exercises, it's easier to show success and just not be so overwhelmed. But it takes work.
Yeah, and these level of awareness is so mission critical. There is this wonderful story from Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. So Bill Gates, he visited Apple, and Steve Jobs showed him the Mac, and the first Mac, and a screen with windows, and how the mouse is working here, and how you can move the windows over the screen. And the engineer who showed that became more and more enthusiastic because Bill Gates was so impressed. Okay, and this way of, yes, I'm extremely impressed, show me more. Yeah, and you just have to see it. It's enough. I saw it. It's a thing of seconds. And then Steve Jobs realized that and told the engineer to say nothing anymore.
Yeah, and I guess the other bad way to get awareness is wait until your house catches fire. Wait until you're accused of theft or you're a victim of theft, and then have to go through a painful litigation. Like, that's a very painful way to learn.
Absolutely.
And really unpleasant way. And for some companies, unfortunately, that's their introduction to trade secrets, is going through a painful, lengthy, expensive litigation. Obviously, I don't think that's a great way to learn or be sensitized. I think if you can be proactive and do things to reduce the chance of your house catching fire, that's all a good thing.
I had a wonderful discussion with an IP expert for whom I make online marketing, and I asked him, tell me which kind of clients you're looking for, okay, with your position. And he said, he's an Australian, and he said, I like crispy clients. So in terms of, they are burned already.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're definitely sensitized. I'll have to remember, that's a good one to use.
Let's be that the famous last words for today. Okay. Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for this fascinating insights into this fascinating world of trade secrets. And yes, they are intangible also, so they cannot be seen, but they are extremely important. And I think that came out today. We could talk about that for hours, and I would really like to invite you again to have a deeper discussion to different aspects. But for the moment, thank you very much for being with us and for your enormous insights.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation, and you can tell, I love trade secrets. I think it's the fastest changing and most evolving form of IP, and it's where the action is, and there's a lot of excitement, and it's great to be here. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay, bye now.